Okay, good afternoon. I'm the lucky one who got the slot to try to keep you awake after the lunch. And with a very interesting topic, standardization, which is some people consider boring, but I don't. A few words maybe of myself first. I'm employed by Trimble and have been working for Trimble subsidiary Tekla for 35 years, and I have done every job there is to do in software business. So I'm pretty familiar with that one. I've been working with model-based software and working with modeling since mid-early 80s. My title is BIM Ambassador, which is not a very common work title. So I have two jobs that I work with. I work with advancing and advocating, promoting use of open standards, both within Trimble and outside of Trimble in the whole industry. And as an industry, I consider built environment, which includes both geospatial and construction, building, infrastructure, everything. And then the other part of my job is to actually develop those standards. So I work with BuildingSMART, I work with OGC, which I just today heard that Trimble has been upgraded as a principal member of OGC today. So thank you, Bryn. I also work with ISO and CEN and some other standards organizations as well. The latest one is ILA, In Location Alliance, which is working with indoor positioning and indoor position-dependent services and that kind of things. So we go to the topic, introducing BuildingSMART. BuildingSMART is what is as an acronym called SDO. This industry seems to love acronyms, Standards Development Organization, and depicts itself as an alliance driving transformation of the built environment through creation and adoption of open international standards. So that's the point. BuildingSMART is a very distributed organization, so it's composed of chapters which are fairly independent, and that's kind of the highest decisive organization of BuildingSMART is through these chapters. And BuildingSMART has a lot of partners. ISO is a strong partner, I'm coming to that a bit later on, and OGC. But as I'm the first SDO speaker, so I'm taking a bit of a liberty to take a little more helicopter view on standardization, how it works and how it means. And the structure is quite interesting, because we have these established formal standards organizations, ISO, CEN, National Standards Organization, which are in most countries. There are about 150 of those kind of formal standards organization, and they have done a great job in standardizing physical stuff. You take nuts, bolts, glues, whatever physical things. These organizations have done a great job of actually authoring and creating the standards. But when it comes to IT, they have kind of failed. So with IT standards, we have got a different kind of structure, and there has popped up a bunch of these kind of private, independent standards organizations, which are kind of owned and managed by the members only. So they have no legal formal position. They are totally private organizations. And of course, BuildingSMART, which I represent here now, is one of them. Open Geospatial Consortium and W3C is one of them also. And they all have the same idea, same strategy for operation. They develop, you could say, very aggressively and with strong force standards, and they make these formal organizations adopt them. So OGC standards, there is TC211 ISO committee, which has adopted a bunch. Most of their standards come from OGC. On the construction side, there's ISO TC59, which has adopted now a bunch of BuildingSMART standards. So this is a quite interesting constellation that it has gone so. And W3C, the web standard organization, same thing there. And this is happening more and more strongly and more kind of consciously. This has been a kind of just happening, but it's becoming more and more organized that things go this way. Then also, if we look a bit of the operating modes, styles, how we operate. So we have this kind of old way of doing things, controlling, give us the money thing, that we control stuff, we do things as we like, we decide, we control everything. And out of politeness reasons, we have left out the organizations from here, but the kind of probably the most obvious example of this would be the telecom standards, mobile phone standards, which are very strictly controlled and they are heavily licensed. You have to pay heavy licenses to use those standards, whereas then with these open standards, of which OGC, BuildingSMART and W3C are the prime examples, those standards are free and open. So anybody can use them without any licensing. There is no kind of even agenda to control the market or control, so it's process-led and the market will decide is the kind of style how these standards are developed. And this is a very big thing because when I talk about standards, I say that the biggest role of standards is to create markets, to actually make a more level playing field so that we don't have monopolies, because monopolies are bad, both for the market and the users, but also for the monopoly. Monopolies end in tears typically on the long term. It's not good, it stifles innovation, and many people say that standards stifle innovation. I'm totally of the opposite opinion. Standards actually promote innovation because they make it possible for new players to enter the field and to do new things which wouldn't have not been possible if the environment would be totally controlled by somebody. So my opinion is strongly that standards promote innovation, competition, and create markets. Almost work. Okay, then a quick view on the BuildingSMART products. So by far the most important BuildingSMART product is IFC standard, industry foundation classes, which is an official ISO standard adopted by ISO 16739 quite recently, less than a year ago. So it's a fairly new thing. Then there are other standards. It's not really working now. Like this data dictionary, which we have heard mentioned a few times today, and information delivery manual, model view definitions, which are going to have a much bigger role in the future than they have today. And BIM collaboration format, which is a way of organizing model-based collaboration. But then a few words about BIM. We have heard a lot of talk about what is BIM. So here you are going to get my 5 cents and BuildingSMART's 5 cents on that. And this is BuildingSMART's position on BIM. BIM is about sharing open structure semantic standard data. That sounds like a mouthful, sounds quite bad when you hear about that quickly, but it's actually quite simple. So open means that the data is available, you can have it, it's possible to get it. Structured means that we have a structure which is machine understandable and machine readable for the data. Semantic means that we have the meaning of data. So if we have some geometry and a bunch of attributes, we have a semantics that this is a wall, this is a floor, this is a ceiling. We have the meaning of the data. And standard means that structure and semantics are commonly agreed, so that we don't need to get them from somebody else. Anybody can go to the open standards like BuildingSMART, download the standards, so anybody can, without the help of the source of the data, the publisher of the data, understand the data fully to the last bit. So that's the point. So BuildingSMART's point on or position on BIM is very, very data oriented, very, very data centric, and it's all about exchanging data. And then the reason why do we need this open structured semantic standard data? And that's if somebody asks for me what is BIM, I say it's a technology. It's just a technology. And the technology in BIM is that we transform information from being human readable to information being machine readable, so that software can understand and act upon the information without human intervention. This is the kind of fundamental thing in BIM. This is what enables all the other things we hear about, benefits, and what we hear about how to use the BIM data. The fundamental thing is that we transfer human readable data to machine readable data, software readable and understandable data. And having heard this now, I make a quiz very often of this. What was the predecessor technology of BIM? What technology is BIM replacing? If you hear about that, this is about consuming data, how we use data, and all of that. Nobody has guessed it. I have made this presentation to thousands of people. Not one have so far guessed correctly what technology is BIM replacing in this meaning, one of the 200 meanings. Nobody?
Paper.
No. 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 What? No. It's very simple when you hear it. It's totally obvious when you hear it. The copying machine. Because the copying machine has been the technology how information has been conveyed in the construction industry until now. And here I count printers as copying machines. But it produces human consumable information. And that, the 100 years now, the construction industry has relied on this technology. And BIM is going to change that. It's going to change so that the consumption of machine change, of information changes, because what can change and what all the use of technology in construction industry for information has been in production of these documents, not the consumption. The consumption is still the same as it was 100 years ago. And the consumption is going to change, and that is why BIM is a really disruptive technology. It's going to change a lot in the industry because it's also exclusive. It means that the information you get when you get it in a BIM form is not human consumptible. You can't consume it manually. It looks terrible. It's totally unusable by humans, so you need software to consume it always. And that means that we have only scratched the surface in the amount of software we are developing for BIM. We will need 10 times more information, software to consume the information, because you can't put on the site worker or somebody out doing real work, you can't put in front of them an application with 500 icons and 500 buttons. No, there has to be 1 to 5 buttons, which means that we need a lot more of purpose-specific software to consume the information, and also equipment, wearables, Google Glass type of stuff, so all kinds of technology. So we are going to use technology also to consume the information, which is new, which is very not used much in the construction industry today. And that's going to change the industry a lot. Because this gives opportunities for automation, fabrication, robots, all kinds of things where you can really use technology for the actual construction, not just for the design. So this is something which is really disruptive. Then if we look a bit of Open BIM, and we have seen many presentations of BIM and Open BIM adoption, but I show a very simple one. And here with BIM, I mean legacy BIM, and that means that you model, you create models, you use modeling tools, but you publish the information as drawings, as human readable documents. And that I call traditional BIM, legacy BIM, whatever you like it. And Open BIM, I mean that you really use the semantic model-based data for communication. So if we place a BIM, this traditional BIM on the schema, we are clearly beyond this chasm. You probably all have seen some kind of this technology adoption curve, which almost every new technology follows. And this is clearly beyond the scheme of creating documents based on models, because there's no going back that the 3D model is only here and then you draw manually in 2D. That's gone. You can automate that process from going from 3D to 2D for documents, and that's already quite far automated. So that's beyond the chasm. But then if we put Open BIM here, that we really use model-based information for communication, that's as clearly still ahead of the chasm. And that's kind of my job, is to gather the momentum to jump over the chasm and get this to be the mainstream to communicate with the machine-readable data. Then if we look where we are here, different countries differ quite a lot. So I would say that in Nordic countries, Finland, Norway, we are already somewhere here. Many countries are here, and so it varies quite a lot where we are. But everywhere I would say that we are beyond the chasm. Then, because of this, we have a high adoption of BIM. BuildingSMART is changing because there's lots of demands and requirements coming, high pressure put on BuildingSMART to produce new things, not infrastructure, not the least. And the change is going on. BuildingSMART has been a very much voluntary organization. So until now, BuildingSMART has had staff 1/2 person. So especially BuildingSMART International, some chapters have had some more paid staff, but BuildingSMART International has had 1/2 person of staff until now, but that's about to change, and now there is hired our CEO, Richard Petri, who started last summer, last spring, and also they started as what is called Strategic Advisory Council with Autodesk, HOK, architects, Nemetschek and Trimble as members. with a significantly higher membership fees than has been usual in BuildingSMART before. So the one aim of this SAC is to finance this going from voluntary to a more professional organization, but also have more influence in the operations of BuildingSMART. There is also a new international membership program for BuildingSMART. Until now, BuildingSMART has been a purely, you haven't been able to be member of BuildingSMART International if you haven't been a chapter. So there have been no kind of private members in BuildingSMART International, and that's changing, and I'm showing a bit of that more later on. So there's a new organization where we still have the International Council, where every chapter has 2 members. We have the managing team, which is ExCom, which communicates directly with the advisory council, and 3 programs, standards, compliance, and chapters. This is quite self-explanatory, so here is where the standards are development. This is for certifying programs and people, and the chapters are then kind of outreach arm of BuildingSMART. The SAC aim is that it will have 10 to 16 members of all major organization types involved in the construction industry and have a kind of even geographical remedy. So there's a bit to work on that. Now it's 1 from Europe and 3 from US. So that in that sense, the situation is not very good at the moment, but we are working on getting more members from all of these different categories to the council. Then there is also now a more rigorous process for standardization. Until now, BuildingSMART has had a very loose process for standardization. It has been a meeting, and whoever has been there, is this standard okay? Yes, okay, passed. And this is not acceptable for an international viable standards organization. We have to have a rigid, solid process to kind of approve the standards and not to give opportunity for any single party or member to try to get benefits, unreasonable benefits, through pushing their own things through as standards. And that's why this is being set up now, and it's going to be run by the Standards Committee Executive, of which I'm a member also. There are 5 members in that. It's an interim one now. And there are going to be different levels of memberships for the international members, depending whether you get membership in all the chapters or not. There is a technical roadmap under work, big interest in BIM's geospatial integration, as we have heard. Indoor navigation and web-based BIM are also under development. I will touch all of those. Hello. So we are working hard on developing a new technical roadmap for BuildingSMART, how to go forward with the kind of on the conceptual level of BIM, how to actually make this sharing happen. And we have kind of taken this visual image or visual like the UK wedge, but we have reworked the content. So we call where we are now, we call bulk BIM. That is, we are exchanging kind of random data sets. We don't have a well-defined data sets which would be purpose-specific. And the next step will be what we call purpose BIM, that we have more well-defined exchanges of information. We develop MVDs, we use automatic MVDs. And so this is purpose BIM because when we do modeling, we always do modeling is an abstraction of reality, and abstraction is always for a purpose. So we don't have anything as the model or one model or totally generic model. We will have many models and many data sets from those models. And the architecture we propose is that you have the master in the native applications, and you publish a standard format data set, I would like to call it, and not the model from there, which is very purpose specific. It could be ordering something, it could be whatever. And also one of the aims here is that we have the capability to make contracts which are based on BIM data, not on documents, because today 99% of contracts are based on documents, human readable documents, and that's one big first step to come into this real BIM world, is to be able to do contracts which has an attachment of BIM data and not documents. So we also did a similar roadmap for product support, which is product libraries, how to have a standard way. There is today no standard way of implementing product libraries. They are more or less proprietary or abusing existing standards because there is no standard for product libraries today, but that's going to be worked on, and that work has initiated, and now we have created a clear roadmap on how to go forward with that work. Well, we have already today gone into quite a lot that we need also other data. This is now from the BIM perspective that we need terrain models, cadastral information, zoning information, utilities, building codes, other things. So this is a very hot topic, and there are several actions, initiatives going on. You will hear more about these later on, so I won't go into those. UK BIM task group is doing a lot because they have a big focus on the infrastructure, and Vicon project by the Dutch and Swedish traffic authorities also is a very important development project, and that's happening in cooperation with BuildingSMART as well. One thing which is very interesting and coming is indoor navigation. I have taken into as my task kind of to promote this very much, and the situation today is quite absurd because when you go outdoors, you have perfect navigation wherever you are in the world. You know exactly where you are going, everything is okay. You can find hotels, shops, restaurants, whatever. But when you go indoor, nothing. It totally stops indoor. And that's going to change because the interest to that is huge. And this is going to be a big deal for the BIM and geospatial communities, also for the facility owners, because the facility owners are going to be the ultimate source of the information, and there's going to be lots of creating information. ILA is developing this indoor positioning, and OGC is working on the data supply. We had last week a joint workshop with ILA and OGC in Rome where we dealt with these things, and now we are going to have in the future also more cooperation between these two organizations. And this touches BuildingSMART also, and within BuildingSMART there is being worked on an MVD to how to create the information for indoor navigation. So it touches several standards, IFC, KML, CityGML, indoor floor plan, and there's indoor GML, which was very recently acquired, and lots of use cases, starting from the simple consumer, where is this shop, take me to this place, take me to this hotel, emergency, robot control, only the imagination sets the limits for the applications. Then we have semantic data on the web, very interesting because web so far has mostly been about human readable information, and it's also going on in the web community that they want to make the information more machine readable so that you can do analytics, which Bryn talked about earlier. Capability to do analytics is very important, and there is used this web of data, open, standard, structured, decentralized, and there is this semantic data web stack, which we are also looking in BuildingSMART, how to incorporate the semantic web technologies into the BIM world, how to do BIM on the web, and to use this web of data also for BIM, because until now BIM has been very much file-based and not the kind of ways how it's going to be exchanged. And well, we have made a kind of simple use case, and the idea how we use these initially, the semantic web technology linking between the objects on an instance level. So we know which when we go, this is the architect's view of a thing, and this is the structural engineer's view, and we can link them together. So the architect knows how is the structural engineer going to implement his wall, and the structural engineer knows on which architect's objects, his objects are dependent. So this is a very interesting development, which is still on the research level, but it's advancing. Oops. Okay, that was all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Leif. A very inspiring talk after dinner. I will never forget that BIM is the new, let's say, copier and printer. And you made it perfectly clear that standards are there for innovation. I have one question, and the question is, of course, and you explained that BuildingSMART is, let's say, dependent from its members and the speed of the members, yeah. And your, let's say, your roadmap is in progress. But when you would be the, let's say, the director of BuildingSMART or the owner of BuildingSMART, and you would do something to establish, let's say, a better, smarter harmonization with the open geospatial standards. What would you do then? What would you pick first? So what would you do in 2015? Which area, which topic would you going to solve together with OGC?
I would say that getting the architecture in order and getting system architecture, information architecture, think about those carefully before diving into the individual standards. And think about where do we want to go, what do we want to do, and not rush into making individual standards, and especially not rush into extending existing standards, because that I consider that's dangerous. Existing maybe. So what I'm propagating and fighting for is this kind of multi-kernel architecture, that we don't try to make one standard cover all. One size does not fit all. That's kind of my message, that we need several standards. And
thank you for the clear answer. Is there anybody else with a question? Yes, you have a question. You can use the microphone. And could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, it's Ken Bragg. I asked a question this morning as well from Safe Software. When it comes to facilities management, do you envision the standards from BuildingSMART supporting that in the long term, or do you see other standards arising that are more suited for facilities management?
There we come into semantics. What do you mean with facility management? Because that's a so broad thing these days. You have to mix in the Internet of Things, all kinds of technology stuff, sensors, big data, all of that. And if we take that bunch, I don't see BuildingSMART having much role in that. That I see belonging to OGC domain. But what comes to kind of providing the base data of the facility as it exists, yes, that's BuildingSMART's domain. But then the kind of running operation, the daily operation of a building, I don't see. This is a big debate within BuildingSMART now. What is BuildingSMART's role in facility management? And in my point of view, that's providing the base data, not doing this real-time active data.
Thanks a lot.
Answer? Yeah. Maybe, is there room for one more question? If not, thanks again, Leif.
Okay,
and
thank you.